All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our weekly storage API sync. Today, we're going to focus on the latest updates to the Subspace relayer, which is now live and archiving Kusama. And and then we're gonna talk about the Subspace JS storage API front end library as well. So, Serge, I'll turn it over to you and let you run us through what's changed.
Sure. So in terms of functionality, I don't think there were any significant changes during the last week. I've been mostly working on the technical debt. I submitted a bunch of PRs. One was merged. It was about tests for chain archive class. And another one was submitted, but it's still like in review. And I'm working on that based on the feedback. That one is focused on refactoring and tests for relay module. And since it's like a big PR, probably I will submit two separate PRs for refactoring and tests. And yeah, basically that's it in terms of like code and repository.
Okay, great. Do you mind sharing your screen and walking us through all that? What's changed? Where it's at?
Yeah, I can show you. 1 second. Do you want to check the one which is in progress now?
Let's just do them in order from the last one since last meeting, and then we can come up to the one that's in progress at the end.
Okay.
Just kind of sequentially.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, so this one was merged. Let's see what we have here. So we have this class chain archive, which basically connects to the RocksDB, local RocksDB on the disks. And we retrieve blocks from the RocksDB using these methods of this class. And I did some refactoring, but apparently this was not, this will change in the following PR. So in terms of tests, yeah, basically I create a mock for the database and we add some random buffer in this case. Later in the next PR, I added a real buffer, like blockchain blocks as a buffer. And here we test different methods. Basically, we test only one method, get blocks, which is the only public method. And we check if it returns what we expect it to be returned. In this case, a sync generator with archive blocks. So here we check only type. And the next test, we check the actual, here we check the block numbers. So every time we retrieve new block, we expect the block number to increment. And in this case, we have like a three blocks in the archive. And on the fourth call of in the fourth iteration of a sync generator, we expect it to be exhausted. Yeah, basically that's it for this one. It's quite small because we only have only one public method. Any questions? Okay, and yeah, I submitted this one for relay module. I closed it because, as I said, I will create a separate PR for refactoring and tests because this one is quite big. I don't know how should we approach it. So maybe I will just give you a high-level overview, or you want to go line by line?
Overview would be better.
Sorry?
Overview would be better. I already went line by line, and for everyone else, it's not that useful.
Yeah. So let's see. This is test configuration. This is not very important. So there is this relay module, which basically we used to have source class, and that source class was replaced by this relay module. And what we had, like a bunch of methods here, separate functions, and they accept a lot of parameters, and it worked, but it's really hard to test. So what I did in my PR, I created a class, a relay class, and all those separate functions, I created a methods, corresponding methods of the class. And the main benefit is that this class can be, those class dependencies can be stopped. We can provide not a real implementation for a target, for example, or HTTP API, but a mocked implementation. So we can test logic separately. And another benefit is that those functions were accepting like a bunch of parameters, as you can see. And let's find, for example, read blocks in batches was accepting like 4 parameters. With as a class method, it only accepts like 1 argument, because everything else is a property of the class. And we can see other methods. For example, this one had like 8 parameters. Now it has only 4. So it simplifies a little bit if you want to follow what's going on. So we had like about 5 functions here, and now we have like 5 class methods. And yeah, this is like refactoring part, and I created a bunch of tests for every method. For example, yeah, we have fetch blocks in batches method, and yeah, basically I do same as we did with chain archive. We check what is the value returned, if it's correct type, and also test some different batch sizes, because we have like a limit for bytes to fit in the batch, and we have a limit block count. So I test different values and check what is the amount of blocks in every particular batch. And same goes for other methods. Yeah, this is how it looks in a nutshell. Any questions on this one?
You said you're refactoring, you're changing it into 2 parts now?
Sorry?
You said you're changing the PR into 2 parts, 2 separate PRs
Right.
now?
Yes. This was feedback from Nazar.
And what are the 2 parts?
So one PR will be a refactoring, and another PR will be tests. So I will just separate them.
Okay. And how long do you expect it's going to take you to finish this? These 2 PRs to get them submitted?
I think I will submit refactoring PR tonight. Like after this call, I only have one question to clarify with Nazar. And after that, I will submit tests probably tomorrow. So, because everything is basically ready, I will just restructure PRs and update according to the feedback I already have.
Okay. And does that close out the technical debt that you had intended to do this week?
For this week, yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then that's where, and now we're going to stop and move on to something else, or you want to do more technical debt next week?
Well, I think we should update our approach to to our development in general. For example, if we see that there is if we work on a particular feature and we see that there is some technical debt in particular module, it's always nice if you, after you implement your feature, you also do something for the technical debt, like minor changes. So every time you work on something, just leave it in a better shape than it was before. I think if we have this approach, there won't be any need to allocate like specific amount of time for technical debt. We can slowly just make it better.
That would be nice. It would be great if we had the time to do that, but we'll have to kind of play it by ear if we can take that approach or not. We're a small team with a lot of work to do, and we don't have a lot of time. So
then,
but I hear you.
Yeah, this is approach I would like us to have, and this is approach I would like to implement on my side.
Yeah, I guess my point is that we've had like a whole week to catch up on this stuff, and we just need to close it out here. We can't just let this continue like indefinitely with the technical debt.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What else have you been working on, Serge, on the relayer?
Yeah, another thing I was working is creating an archive for Polkadot. I'm currently running a Polkadot node, and it's still resyncing. I think I have like 4.5 million blocks at the moment out of 8 million blocks, so more than a half. And out of those 4.5 blocks, for 4.5 million blocks, I have more than 2 million blocks already saved on my local disk. So yeah, it's a little bit slower than it started, but yeah, it's in progress at the moment.
So you're saving that to your local disk, and then you're just gonna submit it over the network to sync it onto the archives in DigitalOcean?
Yes.
Okay. How long has that been syncing so far?
2 days, I think. Yeah.
Okay. 2 days to halfway, and it's probably getting slower as it goes. So, okay.
Yeah, it started like I had 1 million blocks like within few hours, but then it's probably, yeah.
Sure.
You get the idea. So I don't know, hard to predict how it will go after this.
And is that in the traditional like sync mode, or do we have the ability, or do they have the feature yet for the warp sync or any kind of a fast sync?
I think
does anybody know?
It's a regular one.
Okay, so warp sync is still like a experimental, like not deployed feature for Polkadot?
It's like a newer one. I'm not sure it's in the release of Polkadot actually. Might just not be there yet. Or might be, I don't know. But it's like a really new one.
Okay. Okay. And does the chain support that? Like, assuming that you had the archives synced, Serge, do we have? Is it just a matter of like updating the config with the Polkadot endpoint, or do we need to do anything else to support 2 source chains? Oh, we're doing it on 2 separate relayers now, right? Is that what we decided?
Yes, it will have just a different config. 2 instances with different config. Okay.
Have you started syncing state mine as well, or statement?
No, just Polkadot.
Okay. So what we probably want to do is sync these in parallel, and you can definitely do this on DigitalOcean. You don't have to do it all on your machine, but like, you know, if we sync chains 1 by 1, it'll be like 5 days, 5 days, 5 days, right? You know, like to sync everything. So that's why Nazar was syncing like 10 pair of chains like in parallel, and it still took a week at that rate, but that's better than 12 weeks.
Right.
So I think right now for Polkadot, we've got the main chain. State mine has a chain. I don't know if it's fully deployed yet, but it will be very shortly if it's not already. And I know they have blocks that we're going to need to sync. And then I think in the next 2 weeks, there's going to be 4 or 5 other chains that are going to be coming on Polkadot. And we're going to try to be able to support those literally as they come online.
Okay, then I can set up a droplet maybe like tomorrow and include, maybe I can move my current archive to the droplet and start also syncing state mine, because I don't think I can process 2 chains in parallel on my machine because I only have like 30 gigabytes left.
Yeah,
I think CPU will
absolutely.
suffer as well.
Yeah, I think we need to
CPU
get in the habit of doing these syncs in the cloud and not on our machines, so it's more reproducible.
Okay, I will work on that next.
Okay. Okay. Can you pull up the board, Serge, and let's just go through and look at what we actually have in the backlog for Relayer.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in review, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, this one is in review, the tests and refactoring for relay module. And yeah, this is currently in progress. This is probably can be moved here. I did some cleanup, but I think we should, I don't know, what should we do with this one? Because this one is not a priority at the moment. Should we keep it or remove?
Let's go through the rest of these in progress first. The dynamically, yeah, I'm just not aware what the status of those is. Maybe you guys talked about that yesterday on the dev sync.
Okay, so this one is kind of blocked because we don't have all parachains on finality, and yeah, so we need to decide how to approach this.
But that wasn't about on finality.
Yeah, it was about because yeah, so currently we have a configuration file, JSON, where we have to explicitly specify the HTTP endpoint for the RPC of particular parachain. And we used on finality because I could copy public endpoint, which is on Polkadot apps, which is WebSocket endpoint. But since they all follow the same like structure, so I used on finality HTTP endpoints. But if the parachain is not an on finality like Picasso, then we only have a public WebSocket endpoint on Polkadot apps, but we don't have the one we need for Relayer, which is HTTP endpoint. So because of that, I cannot complete this task at the moment.
Okay, and there's two things associated with that from what I remember. The first was the metadata, which got updated with version 14. So I think that we said that maybe most of the new chains we should be able to use without the custom types anymore over WebSockets.
All, yeah. Plus, actually, the new version of the Polkadot.js API, they also have like .raw method on all of the methods. So you can basically request a block but not parse it and get like the JSON that API returned for you. So we can use that and feed that into our function, which transforms that into binary without like decoding all of the types internally and wasting CPU time.
I'm not sure this will help because the API itself is dynamically generated, and when you connect to the node and you don't have a custom types or it's not metadata 14,
it will be like, that's the point. It was like crashing at the very beginning, but now there are metadata, so it will not crash, and after that we don't care anymore. It just need blocks.
Yeah, if everybody has updated to metadata 14, then it should be okay. But
Yeah, so
we
first
need to
point
check.
that I believe all of them updated, otherwise they cannot be parachains. The second point is that Picasso is not a parachain. Like if you go to the Polkadot.js apps and you switch to Kusama and you go to the network parachains, it's not like enabled as a parachain there yet. So strictly speaking, everything that we have so far, it does support on finality. So strictly speaking, it's not like fully blocked. And by the time it goes live, who knows what will happen.
Okay, I can then work to complete the task.
Either way, I think we do need to prioritize and implement the WebSocket support or like Polkadot.js API support for all
Right.
those. Then we just don't have this problem.
Okay. I was sure that Picasso is a parachain, but
I mean, they intend to
just
be a
switch to
parachain.
Kusama network there, and I'll show you. And then under network tab, you have parachain submenu.
yeah.
And you should see like all of the registered parachains here.
Okay.
And you don't see Picasso here. It's like there is like a placeholder in the menu for it and for some others, but they're not like officially live yet.
Yeah, they've just gotten their slot, but they haven't actually owned it yet or taken control of it.
Okay. Okay, so I will work on this one and just expect everyone to have metadata 14. And it should work.
Yeah, that's a fair assumption.
With Polkadot.js. Okay.
All right, actually, let's talk about that task a little bit more. So right now, for all the parachains we have, we're only using on finality, or we have a few that we're using like some other endpoint to get HTTP, or is it all on finality?
Locally, I use some others, but I believe on deployments we only have finality.
No, we're for state. Which one is for Kusama? State mine
State
or
mint.
Yeah, for
State
state mint we use. Yeah, so for that one we use parity endpoint.
Okay.
And for Kusama, obviously, but as for other parachains, yeah, we use on finality.
Okay. And do we have support currently for fallback endpoints, or is it just one?
Just one.
Okay. So that's a separate task. Okay. So
yeah,
so just the WebSockets will allow us to basically get the chain. What are we dynamically getting here? Remind me.
So we can connect to Kusama and we can get para IDs from Kusama, and we can pre-configure like they did for Polkadot apps. They have this it's a JavaScript file, so there is a function that returns an object with all those information, endpoints and parachain names. So we can, but this also includes live parachains and those who are like Picasso, who applied for the parachain slot. So we can create like some kind of JSON file, and with both live parachains and those who are about to become parachain, and we get those para IDs from the Kusama, and we just get all the necessary endpoints information from those that JSON file. So it's not completely automated, but better than we have now.
And when do we get it?
When do we get? Sorry, what?
Like, is this something that happens like on startup, or is it like on some interval, or do we do it manually, like behind the scenes? We run a script to fetch the data.
We can do it on launch first, and then every time we process relay block, we get the para IDs of the para blocks included, and we can check if this is a new para ID. Then we query that JSON once again every time we have a new para ID.
It's an implementation detail.
So if we get, sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if I answered your question.
I'm just trying to picture like what this is going to do at the end of the day. So does that mean that if a new parachain goes live in some Kusama block, then we would see that, like on that Kusama block, we would see it, and then that would get added as a new like child source chain or whatever we're calling it now, like a new parachain, and so then that would just create a new feed and start syncing that feed at that point, like automatically.
Yes.
Feed creation is actually an interesting point. Probably we will not be able to do that. That's
Why
an
not?
interesting point. Like we need some kind of account for that, and if account doesn't exist, then
But
the
we
feed
can
doesn't
derive.
exist.
We can derive right away. No.
Well, after refactoring that I did, the idea was that we do not actually share that seed from the primary account, which owns all of the funds. And we don't derive anything. We just specify specific feeds for all of the chains.
But then we can use same JSON file and just set few accounts beforehand. That, for example, we know this parachain A is about to start, and we can create account beforehand. And when we start receiving blocks, then we will just use this particular account.
So basically, we still need to add all of the parachains manually. It's just that we may not specify URLs for them right away, like they will be fetched automatically, but everything else needs to be specified upfront, like para ID and account. It needs to be registered.
we can have it because it's already on Polkadot apps.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're still having to do a lot of manual work here. I guess it's just less manual work.
Quite a lot. Just if you're interested in JSON, it's not a lot of work.
Okay. All right. And what's the next?
I would say it's questionable improvement actually. Like much more useful improvement is to just add WebSocket support.
Right. Yeah, I guess I'm just confused about the ticket name here. It's really just adding WebSocket support, and that gives us that one of the features that gives us is the ability to dynamically get parachains. It also gives us the ability to have backup endpoints more easily because we're not locked into on finality anymore. So I would imagine there's another ticket which is have secondary endpoints now on retries. Yes. But do we already have that? Yeah. Okay.
Probably this one. Yeah.
Well, for WebSocket there was a separate ticket. I'm not sure why we are mixing everything together. Like WebSocket support is completely independent ticket from everything else, like literally. So just depending on the URL you specify, you select either one or the other. Yeah, there is one at the very end, at the first column, the very bottom.
So that one's really in progress. But that's a different one. That was a raw WebSocket connection versus using.
Doesn't matter raw WebSocket or with Polkadot.js apps or API. It's just like WebSocket. How its implementation detail and dynamically get Kusama parachains is a separate ticket, and backup endpoints is like a yet separate ticket. They are all independent. We can have backup endpoints for HTTP as well.
Right. There's really no backups other than on finality. So
I do not think it's true.
More.
Yeah,
there are more.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually, like if we check here, like for Altair, for Altair it's only, well, most of them, but some have something else. Not just on finality, like Manta have 3 endpoints.
Okay, so
yeah.
I know you say it's an implementation detail, Nazar, but we need to figure out how we're going to implement that right now. So I think it's worth discussing. So I think we want to have, we're not doing raw WebSockets. We're actually just going to use the WebSockets already in Polkadot.js, right? Because we can support that now with the types.
Yeah.
Okay. So really, we have to add WebSocket support before we can dynamically get the parachains.
Yes.
Right. So we can probably like flip those in terms of priority because it's the critical path. And I'm not sure if we even want to make that a priority right now, but let's finish reviewing what we've got on here. And what about the container? Oh, that's Leo. Okay. I thought you were working on that, Serge.
I was working on using GitHub registry and create GitHub action for the for building and updating, pushing container to the pushing image to the registry. But that one we discussed on the infrastructure call.
Okay, and that's done.
That's done. Yeah, already merged.
Okay. Okay, we just didn't have that in the board. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so what else is in not started?
I think this one is also about WebSocket support.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all related. Is there any details in it?
No, there were no details.
Oh, it's just a name. Okay. And put multiple. So that's really a backend change to palette feeds. Right now we just have batch transactions, but we don't have put multiple. So that's like the next level optimization.
I would say it's really minor optimization, probably not worth investing time into.
Okay.
Should I move it to the backlog then?
I would just close it as irrelevant for now.
Well, let's not close it. Let's just move it so we've got it tracked as a potential feature. It's just not high priority. I'm just reading through these really quickly. Sorry, just a second. Okay, so what I'd like to do, Serge, is try to get this to a stopping point this week with the relayer, where we're not really making any major feature changes or improvements, and we're just going to extend it with new parachains and new relay chains. I guess we'll just one new relay chain, but mainly with new parachains over time. And then we will periodically come back to this and improve it, but we still need to get some feedback on this. From like this thing about the POV blocks, like there's probably ways that we're going to start storing this data differently. We might store POV blocks, we might store different indexes, we might store some data that like a quote unquote archival node would store, because there's a lot of data beyond just the blocks that an archival node stores. It stores a lot of metadata about the history. So we're thinking that there might be other data which we might store as well. So this archival network can have more than just a get block API. So I guess the point is, like, we probably just need to kind of freeze development of this for a little while until we get some feedback and think about the architecture a little better. And it's mainly just going to be about extending it as we get new parachains and like fixing bugs as they come in. And really that's about it. So, so like in an ideal world, we'll be done this week with changes, and then maybe you'll spend 20 or 25% of your time like syncing the new parachains and then like adding them to the config and just making sure that everything's like smooth on the deployment, like infrastructure side, that everything's running, and handling bugs as they come up. And then we're gonna move on to starting to work on the Subspace farmer or the Subspace desktop, which is pretty high priority.
But I'm not sure I will finish these two within this week, because today is already Thursday evening in my time zone.
Well, how critical is it to do that? I mean, what does that give us that we don't have right now in terms of functionality?
I don't think this is like super critical, but maybe Nazar has different opinion.
I was distracted a little bit. What were you talking about?
These two tasks are how critical they are.
None of them critical. WebSocket is more important by far. Dynamically get Kusama parachains is kind of nice to have.
Yeah, I just cannot move it.
What's the reason. Why is WebSocket support critical?
It's not critical. It's more important.
Okay.
None of them is critical.
Okay, so is it something we can leave for like the next iteration of Relayer? Or
sure, we have no endpoints which require WebSockets right now, so it doesn't block anything.
Okay. Okay. So we can leave the board as is, and whenever we come back to Relayer, that can be the next thing that we focus on. I think we're going to have to, like I said, kind of pause for a little bit, collect our thoughts here, get some feedback, and then think more about like a version 2 of the Relayer, and might be some more significant changes to it.
Yeah, I just created for the one I mentioned.
Great. Okay. Nazar, you had said that there were like some changes you made to palette feeds that now change the way the accounts work.
No, I created the ticket which describes potential changes.
Oh, potential changes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should talk about that, and then we can talk about like the infrastructure related tasks on here that you've been working on, Leo. And did you have anything else you wanted to cover, Serge?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Leo, have you got any questions about anything before? I mean, we'll get to your part in just a second. I just mean regarding Serge's stuff.
No?
I had a question
go
about
ahead,
Relayer. So we have test A, where Relayer is either not relaying stuff or relaying extremely slowly. What's happening there?
I thought you checked it on test A, because
No, I'm not touching test A at all. I just set up test B once and like I'm ready to go, basically.
Okay, I was confused. I didn't check it.
Okay, let's see what happens there. Maybe we need to tweak something.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Let's just review really quickly. So dev, test A, test B. So right now, can you just kind of like quick review where each one's at, which one's public, which one's being pointed to, and which version they're on? Serge?
I can tell you about dev, because I didn't touch any of the test networks.
Okay.
So dev is, I think all parachains have synced already, like processed from the archives, only Kusama left. And there was an issue with dropped connection, WebSocket connection on the node side. But after we processed most of the parachains, it's no longer an issue. And yeah, it uses the recent image of Relayer from GitHub registry. And I don't think there were any updates on Node either. So everything should be the most recent.
Okay, and so the WebSocket connection was dropping, but then it was reconnecting eventually?
I had to manually restart it a few times.
Okay, but we never
So
really
that needs
did.
to be investigated and fixed because that's no go.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we need to create a ticket for that and do like a root cause analysis on it and figure out what's causing it and debug that.
Okay.
And if you can't figure it out, just assign it to Nazar.
There should probably be a message on the node side if it's like a WebSocket buffer overflow or something. It's usually printed in the logs.
Okay, I will try to find it.
Okay. And then on test, the test B is the one which is public facing right now, right? Okay, test B is fully caught up, but it's on an older version of Node. And test A is syncing over the network still, but it's slow, and we're not really sure why.
No, it is still syncing from archives, and even that is extremely slow.
Okay. Okay.
It's like 5 million blocks in total out of, I don't know, 17.
Okay. And Serge, you're going to be investigating that as well.
Yep.
All right. All right. Okay, cool. All right, Serge, I think we're good. If you want to stop sharing your screen. And Nazar, if you want to let us know what you're thinking about this PR to change palette feeds.
It's just a simple issue. There are basically a few things around ownership of feeds. Currently, we don't track anything, but ideally, we want to know who can push into which feed, so like the data is at least verifiably authored by a specific account. So we need to track who created the feed. We need to limit push just to that owner. Eventually, we need to support getting what feeds are associated with the owner. This way, we can just have a seed in our config on relayer, and we can figure out what feeds belong to it. So assuming that every of those accounts will have just one feed ID, we don't no longer need to specify it in config. It will be like inferred from the chain state, which will be convenient as those feeds can change. And also we need to support eventually transfer of ownership to another account or like to multi-sig account or whatever. Yeah. Just wanted to capture those future updates.
Okay. So do you imagine that the namespace would work like feed ID, then owner ID, or the opposite, like owner ID, then feed ID?
What do you mean by namespace?
Well, like, I guess, do feeds belong to accounts? Like, is that the root level of like the hierarchy of the namespacing that you're imagining?
So there is really no namespacing as such. So we have one like counter for feed ID, which will be the next feed ID or what was the last feed ID. I don't remember. Which basically means that every feed ID is unique, and then there will be like a separate hash map which says like this account owns this, that account owns that, something like that. So it will be probably like two hash maps, one which is pointing feed ID to account and another one that points account to feed ID, if you want to support both use cases, like mapping that way and the other way around. Yeah.
Okay. That
If
could
you
be a
want to
lot of.
minimize storage, we can have like one hash map instead of two.
Yeah, I'm just imagining that could be a lot of state one day, bidirectional like that. But yeah, I'm just, these are kind of like, at an abstract level, they're kind of like smart contracts in an EVM style model. It's just they don't have code associated with them. They're more just state, or like off-chain state, really. It's just like the head of some off-chain state that we're tracking. So it's probably useful to just kind of think of the analogies of like contract ownership in Ethereum as like probably the right mental model for how the ownership should be defined here. Because I think that's what most DApp developers are going to be used to, that kind of mental model. So we don't want to really create something which is like a completely different construct.
Just a hash map.
Yeah, no, I got that. I don't think there's any problem with that. I'm just saying, we just like, I mean, in Ethereum, I'm just trying to, like, as an example, like, there is a contract account, right? And actually, how does it work? I'm trying to remember. How does it work if you want to update contract code?
I don't think you can do that. We need to.
No, they have upgradable contracts. I mean, they have both versions. Maybe Leo or Serge. How do you update contract code? Is it like a proof of authority? Is there like a key associated with contract ownership in EVM style model?
I don't think that you can update. You just deploy a new one, and you have like a proxy contract that points to the new contract address. But update the code of an app already existence is not possible. It's just new versions and a proxy. That's for what I know, at least.
Okay. I think that's like the suggested pattern that most people use, but I believe that you can actually update the code directly unless they've changed it. I know you used to be able to. Okay. All right, so, and how does it work right now? What is the ownership model within feeds, or is there any at all?
There is none.
There's none. So basically, anybody can create a feed, anybody can extend a feed. They just have feed IDs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And this is not on the board, because we're tracking.
It's on GitHub.
Right. Yeah. It's another.
It's on Subspace.js repository, which I agreed we will put new tickets here.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. Okay, cool. So let's transition. Leo, if you want to talk about, let's stick with the relayer for a minute before we get into storage, this Subspace.js, and let's just talk about anything on the infrastructure side for relayer. If there's any updates on that with the current deployment or the current setup that we need to review.
No, actually, I think that there is just a pending update on the testnet B machine to scale it to a C8, a dedicated instance, and just that. I haven't made any other update.
Okay. Everything's been running smooth for the last couple of days. We haven't had any issues with anything in production.
Yeah, we have this Cloudflare problem. I tested in that moment like what was happening, and I was able to get in the internals machines, and I think that it was a Cloudflare problem with the proxy DNS, because I wasn't even able to log in to the Cloudflare front end. Like, Cloudflare had some problems for about 1 hour. And when I was able to log in to the Cloudflare front end, and it was resolved, and I was able to get in the Polkadot Explorer pointing this test RPC proxy DNS. And just that, after that, it happened. It doesn't happen anymore, or again, sorry.
This was the issue Justin brought up the other night
Yeah.
where we had like 80,000. Okay, so so
Yeah.
maybe like Cloudflare itself was under some sort of a DDoS attack.
Sorry, I'm not
So-
sure about that.
I mean, that's just the speculation. It was something on Cloudflare's end. It didn't really have anything to do with us.
I checked the metrics and I didn't find like any peaks in the requests and everything.
Okay.
I think it was just a temporal problem, but that's a problem because anytime that Cloudflare has problem with proxies and everything, we will have this our service will be down. Actually, we will be able to query this RPC.
Okay.
And I don't know how to have a backup to that.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else we need to discuss on the relayer infrastructure backend side? Nazar, Serge, any questions?
Good on my side.
I had one question. I wasn't sure it's for this meeting on infrastructure. So I created this action, GitHub action to update images in the registry. Should we also add another step to deploy on any environment for dev, for example, on dev?
That will be way more complicated. Let's probably not do that yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think something we won't have in the roadmap, but it's going to be non-trivial. Okay. Any other questions, Serge?
No.
Okay. So let's end this meeting. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll start the front end apps, and we'll let you lead that and discuss Subspace.js, Leo. All right.
See you later.
Thanks everybody for watching. If you want to learn about Subspace.js, watch the next meeting. Bye.